ready to call it to order. How are you doing? Awfully bright and cheery for a summer Sunday.
Trying, I bet.
See, I came in and Joey didn't have his coat on, so he wanted to look professional, so he went and got his coat. Sorry, I'm not doing that. Okay. Ready? It is 3:02, and we will start the Active Transportation Advisory Committee meeting, and we will start with roll call.
Patricia Franco. Here. Lyle Hostetler.
I'm here.
Carl Brett Miller. Jeff Jordan. Cheryl Rogers.
Here.
Mary Ellen Shuley is backup for Cheryl Rogers.
Lauren Finsick. Brandon Ross.
Laura Parker here for Brandon.
Mary Gold. Deborah Gonzalez. Erica Todd.
Here.
Hilda Capricio. Dale Hill. Allison Hayward. Melanie Pavon. Bert Pickle.
I'm here.
David Deborah.
Here.
Robert Hanley.
Here.
Karen Bishop.
Here.
Katie Simpson.
Abel Gonzalez, forward to.
Darcy Schiffel.
Yvonne Benevosa for alternate for Darcy Schiphol.
Marisela Diaz Wells.
I'm here.
Do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Agenda item 2. Okay, no citizens to be heard. We'll go to agenda item 3, approval of the April 13th, 2022 ATAC meeting minutes. Do I have any corrections or modifications to the meeting minutes as submitted to us? And if not, entertain a motion and a second for approval of the April 13th meeting minutes for ATAC. If you're muted, unmute yourself and make a motion.
I made some motion, Robert.
Thank you, Bert. I appreciate that.
Always
Second.
good.
Pardon?
I said I'll second. Oh, I'm sorry.
Tell me who you are the second, actually.
Marisela.
Okay. Marisela Diaz Wells is the second. All right, we got a motion from Bert Patel and a second from Marisela Diaz Wells. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? If not, the motion carries. Okay. Now, the next item on the agenda, or make a reminder though. You do it.
Okay. Just a reminder, I sent out an email earlier. Please make sure to have your video on throughout the meeting, and of course, when you're speaking up, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, and why do they need to do that? It needs to follow in compliance with State Attorney General meeting rules, which says that you have to be visible.
Yes, that's the Attorney General's for the Open Meetings Act.
Yep. Right. Any questions on that from any of the stakeholders? Okay. At this particular time, we're going to have the election of the ATAC co-chair, and I'm going to turn it over to Joey, and there's going to be 2 parts to this action item from this committee.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. So I was going to provide a little more background information on the election of the ATAC co-chair. So the ATAC co-chair, every 2 years, ATAC will elect two co-chairs from its current membership. The co-chairs shall be elected by a majority of the members present at the meeting, so a simple majority of the members present. And then for specificity, one co-chair will represent the Cycling or Micromobility Committee, and one co-chair will represent the pedestrian community. And the co-chairs will alternate leading ATAC meetings. So for instance, today Robert is leading this meeting. The next meeting, this next co-chair will lead the next one. So vice versa. Or if one of them can't attend, they'll fill in for the other one.
And the important thing is I represent the pedestrian component of the ATAC, and the new co-chair will have to be someone who represents the bicycle component.
Yes, and building off that, so as Robert said, in March 2022, Robert was elected as the co-chair representing the pedestrian community, and at the time, Jessica Brunson was elected as co-chair representing the cycling and micromobility community. And so at the March 2022 meeting, just to preface a little bit here, J.D. Simpson and Carl Brattmiller were also notified the committee that they were interested, but ultimately the committee did elect Jessica Brunson as a co-chair at the time, and then following April 2022, Jessica resigned as the ATAC co-chair. So that leads us to where we're at today. We're looking for, the committee is looking for nominations to be accepted in the floor for a current member to fill the remainder of the unexpired co-chair term. So that will be until March 2024. And then, so of course, as we mentioned, this co-chair position will represent the cycling and micromobility community. And so, as Robert mentioned, there will be two motions. Like once we hear from the committee regarding nominations, the committee will be asked to make a motion to accept the nominations, and then following that, I'll be looking to have a motion to select the chair, or the co-chair, sorry.
And let me just give you a little background. Joey and I had a meeting last week to talk about vetting people who were interested, to make sure that there was an interest in being the co-chair. So for the bicycle component, one of the people that was contacted wasn't interested, but by law, Open Meetings Act, we have to accept any nominations that any committee member has at this particular time for that co-chair position.
Yes. But essentially, we're opening up the floor for nominations at this time.
Thank you, Sonia.
I'd like to nominate J.D. Simpson for the cycling and/or micromobility.
Okay. Do I have any other nominations?
And just so the folks can hear, that was Abel Gonzalez. He's with San Antonio San Antonio Bicycle, nominating J.D. Simpson for co-chair.
As a point of order, do we know that she wants to accept that nominee?
Yes.
Okay.
She was one of the two that.
I just wanted to make sure it was.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. She was contacted and she was willing to serve. Okay. If we don't have any other nominations, we'll close the nominations and then we'll take action on voting for J.D. Simpson to be the co-chair of the ATAC committee. We don't need nominations closed. Go ahead.
Yeah, as long as there's somebody else making a nomination, we'll just have to somebody will need to make a motion to accept the nomination.
Yeah. You good? Bert?
So at the time, since we're not hearing, if there's anybody looking to nominate somebody, you can go ahead and do so, but if not, at the time, the committee can accept the motion to accept the nomination of J.D. Simpson as co-chair.
Make a motion to accept J.D. Simpson's nomination.
Okay. I have a motion from Karen Bishop to accept the nomination of J.D. Simpson as the co-chair for ATAC. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion from Karen and a second from Bert McKell for nominating J.D. Simpson as the co-chair of the ATAC. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same sign opposed? None. So motion carries. All right, the second part of this is the motion to accept, that was the nomination. Now this is the election to accept J.D. Simpson as the co-chair for ATAC under the provisions that Joey stated earlier. We will alternate between the pedestrian segment and the bicycle mobility segment for these meetings. So do I have a motion to elect J.D. Simpson as the co-chair.
This is Lyle. I move to elect J.D. Simpson as the co-chair.
Lyle, thank you very much. Do I have a second?
This is David, and I'll second.
All right. I have a motion from Lyle and a second from David. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed? Okay, motion carries. J.D. Simpson will be the co-chair of ATAC. All right, moving on. Our next item on the agenda is a presentation of the Alamo area MPO's plans and documents, and that's Sonia.
Can you all hear me? Oh, you know, I can sit down there. Well, can I, can you live in?
Okay.
Everybody online hear me?
Yep.
I hear you.
Fine.
I've never really been accused of being a microphone, so good. Okay, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Sonia Jimenez, the Deputy Director of the Alamo Area MPO, and I'm happy to present you some information about our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, known as Mobility 2050, the Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal years 23 through 26, and that also includes a little bit of information about our conformity document that's required for Bexar County that is in non-attainment in terms of air quality. Good. So, as you know, AMPO has 4 major deliverables. This particular effort covers 3 of those deliverables. The first major deliverable we have is the Unified Planning Work Program, the UPWP. It's a 2-year program that covers our plans and programs for 2 years and includes our budget as well. The Transportation Improvement Program is a 4-year time frame that programs capital improvements as well as other programs for transportation in our 3.5 county area that is updated every 2 years. And then our MCP, which is typically updated every 4 years, covers 20+ years and includes goals, strategies, and transportation projects. And this year is the funding, the horizon year is 2050. And then finally, the transportation conformity document ensures that the projects that we are programming into the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, will not do further harm to air quality in Bexar County. So only Bexar County projects are evaluated for this particular document. This is probably more information than you need to know or that you already know about. We cover 3.5 counties. As you can see, our growth between now and the next 30 years is going to be almost double. But if you look at our lane miles, we're only adding 1,000 more lane miles. And this is where the work that this committee does is very essential in terms of influencing the TAC and the board to give us some more multimodal projects to make up for the increase in population and the significant reduction in lane miles, if you will, compared to the growth that we're facing. Mobility 2050 is as I said before, typically updated every 4 years. We did it in a 3-year cycle this year with the intention of hoping that it would align with our TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, and our conformity. It is a federal requirement. It does include all modes of transportation, and it is fiscally constrained in the sense that if you're going to be listed on the projects that are listed in this particular document, you have to have an identifiable source of revenue that is 20+ years out. So there's not a wish list. The last time this was revised to 2019, as I said earlier, we updated it 3-year mark to better align with the TIP and the conformity document. We extended the comment period to June 20th, so it just closed on Monday and is set for approval this coming Monday, June 27th at the board. The TIP, as I mentioned, is a 4-year document that has capital improvements for programming, typically updated every 2 years. It is fiscally constrained in a similar manner that the MPP is. It is fiscally constrained with more realistic dollars available as we project those when we get the formula dollars handed down to us. The MPO is made aware of how much money we can award, the total of all the projects in the area. It was developed cooperatively as you know, through the ATAC, through the TAC, and through the board, as well as through our local governments, individual stakeholder meetings, and so forth. All the projects that are in the TIP are in the MCP as well, and this document is up for approval as well on Monday, June 27th with our board. Vision that the board set forward, we did a public involvement process to get some feedback on the vision, and what you see in front of you is the vision that's developed and facilitated conversations with the board and with input from that public process, focusing on the development of transportation systems that are easy to navigate, include advancing alternative modes, equitable accessibility for all users, ensuring impacts to the natural environment are minimized, mitigating the air quality issues that we have, particularly in Bexar County, and fostering appropriate land use patterns and prioritizing public safety for all forms of transportation. Now, the goals are a little more extensive. I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I encourage you to look at them. They do encourage partnerships, exploring transportation technologies, investing in the existing system and preserving right-of-way, looking at managing traffic congestion, enhancing the quality of life, preserving community culture as growth continues to impact the areas, looking at context-specific solutions. There's always a focus on safety, and fostering the region's competitive advantage so we can get the highest return on our financial investments, and of course, increase the involvement and participation of committees as well as the general public. If you look at the plan, it is very different from years past. The way we developed it this time, we did it into 4 major sections: the Alamo area today, the future of transportation, the funding forecast, and then the project and program list. When you look at the project and program list, you'll notice that there's an unfunded project list included on there. Those unfunded projects are listed for the local governments to be able to take advantage and leverage any opportunities that they may have for funding and advancing planning. There's typically some grant opportunities that will be available to advance those projects into further planning if they are included in a long-range plan. So I'm going to quick through this and quickly go over the Alamo area today and the future of transportation. And I'll give you some information about how to access the document if you want to look at the draft online. So the 3-year look-back period, the studies that we covered included the Capital Alamo Connection Study, the Fort Worth to Laredo High-Speed Transportation Study, the New Braunfels Transit Study, and the Sub-Regional Planning Study that just wrapped up in March. The programs that we continue to fund and will continue to fund through the foreseeable future are the Alamo Commute, the street skills classes, safe routes to schools, National Bike Month, which we just wrapped up last month, as you all know, the Walkable Community Workshop Program, the bike rodeos, and the safety talks. The roadway projects that are either under construction or completed, as well as public transportation projects that were completed in the last 3 years include 2 via Primo routes, Garza-Mora Military, via Brooks Transit Center has been completed and is open. Via Links, the northeast and the northwest zones are open. ACOG, ARC, their mobility, their on-call demand transit options with Connect Skiing and Cowboy Connect. And then the major roadway projects that Texas is either under construction include parts of 1604, 410, I-35, and the I-10 connectivity improvements in Gates County. Looking forward, the 2023 through 2026 TIP includes 38 added capacity projects, 26 transportation systems management and operations projects that we call SISMO. Those include operational improvements. The Alamo Commute Drive Shares is funded through that as well. Intelligent transport systems, transportation demand management programs, and the Safety Service Patrol, which is the HERO and One Bridge project. And looking beyond 2026, we have 29 added capacity projects and 16 SISMO projects. In terms of freight, the current efforts generally have followed Texas lead as the state agency that leads the freight network development of the network. And particularly for Barrett County, we have been involved with the Great Separation Feasibility Study at Rhythm and Walton. There is a concept that came out of that. We're hoping that that will go to funding and get funding for that. The truck parking study, and then the network technology and operations plan that TechSub is advancing. And then very near future, fiscal year 23 likely, we will launch the regional freight study through AMCO, and we'll be leading that. We'll be looking at current and projected trends for freight. We'll be looking at policy and program recommendations as well as capital improvements, and we'll be leveraging the various efforts that TechSub is doing, including the freight corridor development, the lane restrictions, and the national highway intermodal connectors for that study. If you know anybody that's interested in participating, please let us know as we begin to get the stakeholder list together. Emerging technologies, as many of you know, computers arrived overnight and were very disruptive to our entire system, so we're trying to anticipate that moving forward. So we will be looking at existing and anticipated emerging technologies as we begin to look at improvements to the entire network. We'd like to continue to incorporate best practices for planning, stay involved with the local, state, and federal efforts to explore the potential impacts of these technologies, looking to develop policies around transformative technologies and seeking funding opportunities. Many of you know the current infrastructure bill that got passed has a lot of funding opportunities for emerging technologies, so we'll be keeping our pulse on that, particularly as it relates to electric vehicles. In terms of active transportation and transit, for the TIP, we have 24 bike pedestrian projects. They include complete streets, bicycle pedestrian bridge, cycle track, shared path, and trails. And then we have 6 transit that will complement that as well, with expanded service and replacing, continues to replace their diesel with a natural gas fleet. Beyond that, we have 1 complete street project, which is Broadway, and I'll talk about that if you're interested in a moment, and 4 transit projects that are listed for the long range, continuing to replace the diesel with the compressed natural gas fleet, advanced rapid transit on the north-south corridor, and then the second location for the operations and maintenance facility that VIA is now currently constructing. For the 23 through 26 TIP, you should be familiar with this, but we're going to go over it one more time. The funding sources include congestion mitigation, air quality improvement, which is CMAQ. That money is only available in Bexar County. We have the Surface Transportation Block Grant funding, which is the most flexible of the funding categories. And then we have transportation alternatives, which is bicycle and pedestrian improvements only, and those locations must be open to the public. Any entity that gets this type of funding has to match at 20% local match. It is a reimbursable funding program, which means that the local entity has to have the money up front and they get reimbursed as they make progress on the project and submit invoices to get reimbursed. These projects are programs to be delivered anywhere from 23 to 2028. We have 2 outer years, 27 and 28, just in case some of these schedule letting is slipping, so we have a backup plan to put those in. We do have the ability to move those up if they progress as well as they have been programmed. So essentially, we have 15 projects and programs, a little over $36 million awarded during the project call. We have 9 projects carried over from the previous, or the current SIP, 21 through 24. And so the total for all of those 24 projects, looking at $54.5 million. I know that you cannot read this list, but it is a comprehensive list of the 24 projects that are currently programmed in the TIP for the years 23 through 26. This is available in your packet, and so if you want to study it, if you have any questions about it, please do not hesitate to reach out to myself or Joey to get more information about them. The number in parentheses is the expected letting date. If you want any more information beyond that, please reach out to us, as I mentioned.
It should also be on IMAP. It
is on the website as well, and I'll go over that at the end as well. For the UPWP, I just wanted to give you an update. We will continue to do data development in terms of safety planning, regional equity analysis, and regional lighting studies. Some of those things you may be interested in. The lighting study, I think, may be of great interest to to you all as the ATAC. For short-range planning, we have active transportation planning, which Joey leads up. We're going to have a curb management study that will come out sometime this calendar year. We also have the city's multimodal planning study and the pilot program that VIA is leading for the transit-oriented development planning. For the long range, we have a resiliency study as well as a rapid transit corridor study, and then our special studies continue to be Alamo Communities program. I don't know, I'm presuming everybody knows that Alamo Communities is on the committee, and if not, Eric's office is in the room and he can answer questions about that as well. With regards to the new infrastructure law that was passed, the infrastructure, we call it the IIJA for short. Safe Streets and Roads for All is a grant program, so it is discretionary. You have to apply for it. You can do an action plan, which would be a holistic, well-defined, comprehensive plan that prevents fatalities and serious injury. You have to have the action plan in order to get the implementation dollars. So the implementation is a separate submittal for application, and those projects and strategies, again, it says that there has to be identified in that safety action plan. The considerations are equity with a focus on pedestrians, cyclists, climate change, sustainability, and the action plan can get awarded from $200,000 to $1 million for cities and counties, up to $5 million for MPOs or joint applications. The implementation grant is $5 million to $30 million for cities and counties, $3 million to $30 million for rural areas, and $60 million for MPOs or joint applications. Any of you that want to pursue the action plan with us, the MPO will not likely be submitting for the September deadline of this year, but because the current administration really encourages joint applications, we will be looking at partnering with other folks throughout the region to submit those applications. At a minimum, we'll be working with the entire region to get that action plan developed so that we can legitimately say that we coordinated efforts and it was a joint application, not a joint application, but a joint effort to develop that action plan. I will be attending a workshop next week to get more information about this particular grant program. The other two that are on the horizon are the Healthy Streets program. The focus of the Healthy Streets program is to reduce flooding, improve air quality, and mitigate the urban heat island effect. The considerations are expanding the tree cover and deploying smart surfaces and innovative pavements. And then the second one is increasing safe and accessible transportation options. And again, that is really focused on what you all do here, multimodal travel or complete streets, and the considerations of complete street standards and policies. So more information and opportunities to come as that information trickles down from the current administration direction about how to apply those grants. A little bit on transportation conformity and air quality. As I said, it evaluates the project to ensure they do no further harm. The MPO is the primary agency responsibility for demonstrating that the projects do not increase or further harm the air quality, and requires a significant interagency consultation with the Fed, as well as the state and our local partners. The transportation conformity document and presentation is available online as well. This is our timeline. As you can see, the EPA comment period for proposed action to reclassify our non-attainment ended on June 13th. We are looking to do another conformity analysis later on this year, which will consider build and no build in anticipation of our reclassification in the later part of this year from marginal non-attainment to moderate non-attainment. Let me get back to 1 second. One thing I do want to say here is it's important to note that the air quality has not gotten worse in the area. It's just we weren't able to sustain the levels required to get us out of non-attainment. So now we're getting reclassified to moderate non-attainment. And then public involvement for all three documents included phase 1, when we took the TIP projects out with the MTP request for input on the vision. We got the public we gave them the full list of the TIP projects that were nominated for funding. They were able to choose their top projects, and we codified those to present that information to you all as well as the TAC as well as the board. Phase 2 was a survey of emerging technologies. It was a very informal survey, but we wanted to get feedback on what types of technologies people would consider using, what they're using now, and the level of risk that they would take with new emerging technologies. Phase 3 was the public meetings that concluded on May 18th. The comment period was extended, as I mentioned before, from May 20th to June 20th. And then the final phase, we're wrapping up phase 4, taking it to the policy board this coming Monday, June 27th. And that concludes the presentation. It was quick and dirty. If you want to go on to our website, if you put in alamoareampo.org/yourmove, you can see all of the documents in a draft form. The official comment period closed on Monday, but we're always taking comments as these are living documents and can be updated, and they are amended on a regular basis. So I'll entertain any questions. If you're virtual, please unmute or raise your hand so we can please manage the flood of questions we're going to get.
Sonia, this is Lyle. I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So with us going into moderate non-attainment, how does that change CMAQ and conformity? I know with conformity, we have emissions budgets. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's a new thing. And then I'm just curious if CMAQ changes, if the allocation scheme is any different now with us being bumped up.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, but I think for CMAQ, I don't know if that increases our amount of funding in that department. I would hope that it would. I do know that as soon as we get into moderate non-attainment, the state and the feds will be handing us an emissions budget, and then we have to be sure that we are meeting that budget. It's very likely that when you go to get your car registered, you'll have to do more than just a quick inspection. You'll probably have to do an emissions inspection and have that as well, and mitigate if they determine that your car is emitting too much carbon dioxide. So that's all I have. That's all the information I have right now. I can certainly follow up with you. And Lyle, you guys might have more information than we're going to get, but probably going to be in around the same time since you guys do the air quality modeling for us. So we'll just keep a pulse on that. We'll be probably October, November before we get that reclassification. And then I believe we have a year to comply with the budget emissions requirements.
And then one more question related to the freight study. Will there be a component to that study that addresses electrification, like determining, how much is needed along certain freight corridors, for example?
I think it's going to be looking more at the movement of freight, but you make a good point. We have not completely scoped it, so if that's something that you think we need to include, we can certainly add it into the scope and to see how it comes out when we do the proposals. Because we'll be doing that consultant-led effort.
Okay.
So if you're interested, we will be putting together a selection committee for that consultant. If you're interested in participating on the selection of that consultant, I can certainly keep you in mind.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested in that. I have a little bit more to talk to you about, but I won't do it here. We'll go offline.
You know how to reach me, so thank you so much. I think Karen had a question.
Yes. Do you know whose definition of complete streets is used by this program or even by you guys?
Well, I know that the MPO has adopted the city's complete street ordinance, so I was assuming that it would be the city's complete street. My presumption, although I have not reconciled them, is that it has a similar definition of complete street. Okay, thanks. I'll ask that question again in the workshop. Make sure we're all on the same page for that.
Or see if it's been updated.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Sonia. That was an information item. Next item on the agenda is number 6, update on the TxDOT San Antonio bike plan. Yvonne. And I think she's doing this remotely, right?
Yeah. Yvonne, you can go ahead and share. I'm not sure. There you go.
I'll see my screen. I need to share my other screen. Sorry.
Or we can see it clearly now.
You can see it?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, awesome. So this is just going to be a quick information about the district bike plan that we're doing here in TxDOT. So this is a very new bike district-wide plan that we're doing. We do have a consultant that's helping us do this, and that is Tool Design. And 4 districts are participating in this whole statewide district plan, and that is Bryan, Laredo, Barr, and San Antonio. So the idea behind the district bike plans is to...
Sorry to interrupt. Could you talk a little bit louder, please?
Yeah.
Can you hear me better?
They can't hear. You're nodding, Bert. Can you hear, Bert?
I see.
Is this better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. So this is just a brief information about our new statewide district bike plan. We have a consultant helping us, and that is Tool Design. And we have 4 districts participating. So we are going to be the guinea pigs of this plan, and that is Bryan, Laredo, Barr, and San Antonio. The idea behind the district bike plans is to analyze the needs on the highway system, prioritize them, and then identify potential solutions. This is not really like a scoping type of project, but it's just more analysis of what's out there and what can we do in the future. Currently, we are exploring available data, and we hope to have a methodology by July. And I'll skip this slide because it's a little redundant. We are going to have a variety of teams and work groups. We have a district core team, and this is TxDOT staff who will be managing and directing the plan process, and will be coordinating with local internal and external partners. Then we have the district technical work group, and this is where we'll have people from TxDOT, people from the city, and people from our local regional area agency partners like AMPL staff, who will help us review draft findings and provide input on existing conditions, needs, prioritization, and implementation. And then another work group that we'll have, it's an equity working group, and this is more community-based organization and stakeholders who will bring an equity component into the bike plans. So we are kind of asking y'all if you have any suggestions to let us know of who would be a person that would be great in participating in this district bike plan. And the project schedule is right here. Like I said, we just recently started with this. We had the district plan overview webinar in June, and hopefully by August, October, we'll have the future district working group meetings. By April, hopefully we'll have the statewide analysis summary complete. And by September of 2024, we'll probably have that district bicycle plans complete. And that's it. Anybody have any questions?
Is that plan to take into account text out roadways, or does that kind of look at other roadways from other municipalities and entities?
I think right now the idea is to kind of look at text out roads, like see what we have, where we have existing bike facilities, but we'll also take into consideration any roads that are used for, say, to get to a interested area, things like that sort.
Will you be, Yvonne, quick questions, David. Will you be taking into consideration not just textile roads, but access? Sorry, I'll speak up as well. Thanks, Joey. Appreciate that. Will you be considering not just textile roadways that have existing pavement or existing transportation facilities, but excess textile right-of-way that could be used for side paths and other facilities as approved in the Uniform Traffic Control Devices manual?
I think so, yes.
Okay. And actually, Yvonne, I have a kind of a general question. What is the end result of this planning exercise that y'all are going through? Is it a list of existing conditions, a list of potential facilities, a roadmap, a plan for a network? What is the end goal that that TxDOT is engaging with these 4 districts?
So the end goal would be to kind of have a template that can be used by every district, but like analyze the data that we have and like look for potential possibilities of where we can have opportunities for bike facilities. I know one of the final deliverables, it's also having like a GIS product to see all this data.
Do you have any other questions for Yvonne?
Can you repeat the first question that Carl had? I didn't hear it.
The question was if it was going to be textile roads only, were going to be considered.
And the answer was,
She said
she thinks so.
Yeah, I think.
Probably
Yeah.
The
first question was if TxDOT will consider other roads besides just TxDOT, and I think we will.
Well, I have a question, and I'm not sure if it's for you guys or it's for her, but is there already a process in place by which we can make sure that there's good representation on the various stakeholder groups that she referenced?
Right. This will be kind of textile. I guess, Yvonne, I know you had asked for, I guess, more input on, I guess, laying out Karen's question. You asked for, I guess, more input on some of the, I guess, stakeholder groups or like working groups for this plan. Do you already have a general list, or I guess, how can you share that with the committee? And I guess, or do you just want general suggestions for these different committees?
Yeah, we have a list from public hearings that we've had, and we plan on including those people. But if you have somebody in mind that would be perfect or would be very knowledgeable in like bike facilities, that might be a good participant to include, then we welcome that suggestion.
Is there any more questions for Yvonne? Okay, no more questions. Thank you, Yvonne. We'll move on to agenda item 7, presentation discussion of Bike Month 2022 activities. Joey.
All right, so that
Pat yourself on the back one. Son?
Oh, not me. It was all Joey and Karen.
That's all right. Pat yourself on the back, Joey.
and here for the big help this year. So once again, it's Joey Public, Active Transportation Plan, the Alamo area PO. have Eric, involved with the NPO, or Speed Solutions Planner, here at the NPO. He is one of we both did a lot of work for Bike Month, and we're going to provide a little recap on some of the things that we did, and some of the things that the general community did throughout Bike Month. And sorry to hear some loud vehicles in the background. But, okay, we'll go through this, and so, once again, we'll go over what is Bike Month, just to refresh your memory on what exactly is Bike Month, and, sorry, background noise. Okay, we'll go over what is Bike Month, calendar of events, Bike Month Challenge, the Bike Passport, Bike Birthday, and our Street Skills classes. All right, so just a little refresher for y'all. Once again, Bike Month has been around since 1956. So it was established by the League of American Bicyclists, and it takes place annually during the month of May. It showcases the many benefits of cycling, and of course, they encourage more folks to give it a try. And since 2018, many participants have turned out for national bike events like Bike Birthday, Biking Festival, and Street Skills classes. Prior to 2018, the NPO had an event called the Walk and Roll Rally, and so of course that was in conjunction with regional transportation partners on an annual basis in the spring for over 2 decades. So we shifted gears in 2018, kind of focused in May primarily just on Bike Month itself. So really don't look at a calendar event, but essentially this is the calendar of events collected from our online calendar. So if you have visited our website, alamoareanpo.org/Bike Month, you find this calendar there. So we had a submission form, and we collected information about these events, had it on the calendar, and hopefully it served as a good resource for folks looking to get involved during the month of Bike Month. And so to see a very diverse set of events here in San Antonio, in Brussels, and Seguin, and I'm sure there's some events you've missed, but really excited about the work we did this year to make sure that we did collect these events and put them on our calendar. So it's kind of a joint effort between Eric and I to make this happen. So I'm glad we got this off the ground running this year. And here's a few photos of some of the events. We were part of the top one proclamation for Bike Month and Bike Birthday at the City of San Antonio City Council. On the bottom is Bear County Commissioner's Court for the proclamation for Bike Month and Bike Birthday. Middle right, the photo from Seguin's event. That was the Fabulous Bikes event of a big bike giveaway event. And for that event, close to like 300 folks passing out different bike education items. Then the middle photo on the left, that's from the Ride of Silence event this past year, or this past May. And that Ride of Silence is an event that essentially honors members of the cycling committee who either have were injured or killed in a bicycle crash. So the next topic is the Bike Month Challenge, and I'm going to pass this over to Eric to talk about some of the stuff happening in the Bike Month Challenge. I didn't have anything this year. Take it away, Brian.
All right, yeah, so we had, with Alamo commutes, our whole, our goal is to get people to make the switch from driving alone to work to, choosing an alternative mode of transportation, something like biking or carpooling. So this, of course, Bike Month, trying to get people biking to work. So we had a challenge. This is where people would record their bicycle trips on our Alamo Commutes mobile app or on the website all throughout the month of May. And then we have some giveaway prizes. If you participate, you have a chance to win one of 5 $100 gift cards. And these gift cards were coming from our partner, Agile Mile. So this year, we challenged participants to ride enough miles around Texas, this ride around Texas, which is about 3,800 miles. That was the goal. The total was around 5,000 miles. That was the end result. Over 800 bike trips, 59 participants using our app and logging bike trips, which equates to around 237 gallons of gas that was saved and 4,600 pounds of emissions. Here's some past data. So on the left-hand side, we have previous bike months. So you see 2018, we had about 50 participants with a total of 1,500 total trips. 2019, we had 58 participants. 2020, we had 27 participants. 2021, we had 42. And then this past year, we had 59. So on the right-hand side, we have the data for the 2022 calendar year, just showing you the engagement on our app when it comes to logging bike trips and people participating in, commuting by bike. So January, we had about 19 people. And then May, our big push, we had 59 people. And so this is sort of the important data that Alamo Commutes really cares about. Is, well, if we had 59 bike participants in our app, how many of those actually change their behavior when it comes to the commute? So out of these 59 participants, 16 of them said that their original commute mode was driving alone, and then 9 of those 16 actually went ahead and logged a bike trip, while the other 7 were logging recreational bike trips. So that's kind of the data that we're really focusing on is, how can we make that switch? And, for that month of May, it was about 9 people that logged. And again, this data is all self-reported data, and you have to log it through our app. We also had a bike passport. This is where we partnered with 5 different San Antonio, mostly downtown locations. And these employers, they offered a discount to people who bike to their store. So we had 5 different places, Bakery Lorraine, The Good Kind, Cafe Azteca, and Squeezer's Juice Bar that all were on board, were all willing to give that discount. And this was also a challenge of sorts. If people biked to at least 2 of these places, they could take a picture of their passport, they'll send it to us, and then we would enter them into a raffle as well.
I can provide a little bit more information to you on this. So, like the first year doing this, Eric kicked us off this year. I think it's cool too that all these businesses, I can't talk right now, all these businesses are local businesses right here. I think there's locally owned, all of the locally owned businesses. And but also, just for reference to, like, this is a pilot project this year. I think it'd be interesting to see how we can grow this to other areas of the PO as well. But I think it seemed like we'd be pretty successful this first year doing this.
And I got to reach out to 2 bikers who participated in this bike passport and, sent them a couple of questions, interview what they enjoyed most about the bike passport. So yeah, Samuel, I just put a couple of quotes that they sent me. He said he enjoyed experiencing new locations around town that he's never been to. And then we have Jose, who just recently moved here, and he enjoyed getting to know San Antonio a bit more through the businesses and the streets and the friendly people in the new areas that he got to visit.
All right, thanks, Eric. Excited stuff from Bike Month Challenge and the Bike Month Passport. Thank you. So next, we're moving on to Bike to Work Day. So we've been coordinating Bike to Work Day, as mentioned, the past few years since 2018. So this year, Bike to Work Day took place on May 20th. So once again, this takes place annually. And so once again, it's a great opportunity to encourage folks to bike to work and also thank folks who are already biking to work. So, tell folks you're ready to bike to work, tell them thanks for doing that, but also encourage new folks to get cycling to work a shot. So this year we had 7 Bike to Work Day Energizer stations in our study area. So Energizer stations are our local term for the Bike to Work Day stops. Some other cities have different names. We happen to land on Energizer stations for our local area. So this year, it's an increase from our 3 Energizer stations in 2021. A little brief history there. Back in 2020, of course, we did not have in-person Bike to Work Day events due to COVID. 2021, it was a rebuilding year for us, of course. We weren't even sure if we were going to have Bike to Work Day because of COVID. And also last year, there was a huge chance of rain, but luckily we pulled it off. We had 3 stations. But this year, we're excited to grow it to 3. We had 6 in the San Antonio area, and we have 1, and there's 1 in New Braunfels. So I say we, but once again, a community-led effort. So the MPO, we had our own station here. We had some partners who supported us with food. But all these other stations, some folks sitting here in this room, hosted their own stations throughout the city area, did some cool activations at their stations, and provided breakfast items and whatnot. So once again, it's a great community-led effort for Bike to Work Day. And so some stats on that. So this year we saw about a total of 105 cyclists. There's Dots Rec in New Braunfels saw about 20 folks. Lions Field in San Antonio saw, my video's delayed, 15 folks, 15 cyclists. Eco Centro, just north of downtown San Antonio, saw 13 cyclists. Travis Park in downtown San Antonio saw about 15 cyclists. The MPO we saw about 42 cyclists. And then Blue Star saw about 5, and then Alamo saw about 10 cyclists. So we also had we had a survey for Bike to Work Day, as we usually do each year, especially as we're a planning agency. We put this on. We want to learn more about these cyclists and understand what are their thoughts on cycling and things of that nature. So first of all, we asked how often do you ride your bike to work? 16 folks said daily, or 60 cyclists said daily. 16 said a few times per week. 12 said a few times per month. And then 6 said it was their first time. And then we got 4 folks who did not answer. Good 6 folks who rode to work for the first time. That's pretty awesome to see. We also had a question about what type of cyclist you are. So there's a there's some research based on this in terms of what type of cyclist you are. It's originally originated from a study research from the city of Portland. So we put this out there too and asked folks, what kind of cyclist they classify them as. That's either strong and fearless, enthused and confident, interested but concerned, or forced no answer. So 17 folks said strong and fearless, 21 cyclists said enthused and confident, and 11 folks cyclists said interested but concerned. So we also asked the same question in our street skills class, so I think it's great to ask the cyclists where their perceptions are at. It tells them it tells us how they feel when they're riding on the streets, how they're riding in bike infrastructure. Maybe there's no bike infrastructure, or maybe there's just a lot of automobile traffic that makes them feel nervous. So I think it's good to get this feedback from cyclists about their perceptions of riding in the area. So we've got some pictures here from some of our stations. We've got Lions Field here, we've got Campo, we've got Alamo Architects, New Braunfels, and Travis Park. So a little visualization of some of the stations here, and I thought I had one of this one too. But we'll have to share some more photos of these later, but just a little snapshot of some things some of our stations we're doing and all the fun they're having too. So most importantly, we want folks to, especially for internet stations, want folks to have fun, make it part of their own, and yeah, just have a great time. So street skills, we did have one street skills class on May 4th at the MPO office. In that class, we saw about, I think, 4 or 5 folks. So we have a street skills class coming up on the 29th. So once again, these are classes to help boost your cycling skills. This is an in-person in-class, or the off-the-bike class, and participants receive a helmet and life vest as part of this class. And here's, of course, a thank you to all the folks who participated in Bike to Work Day, and of course, I also want to give a shout out to some of our folks who sponsored our food here at the MPO, but the Bike to Work Day thank you as well, to give a thank you to everybody who participated in Bike to Work Day. As you can see here on thank you traffic. So Once again, thank you to everybody who participated, who had an manifestation, who had an event during Bike Month. Y'all are the people who make Bike Month happen and make it a great success. So thank you all once again. And that concludes my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Were you able to log or somehow know what their travel lines were? Like, what would they communicate from, like the route?
So we don't, so Deborah from the city of San Antonio, she asked, we have information about, I guess, their commuting path, correct? So we did not collect that information this year. We haven't collected it in the past. Of course, especially in these cases, like sometimes they're pretty quick interactions, folks trying to get to work. But I think that is something interesting to hear in the future. I know some of our previous planning studies have collected that information from folks and from like crowdsourcing, like what is like their starting point, ending point in their commute. But we did not collect that this year.
Yeah, because it depends, I think, a lot on what type of street you're using and your comfort level, the path, or if you would like to see this type of protection, or what would you do in your commute to feel safe on the streets.
Definitely. And one thing we do collect is we try to, especially at the NPO, we're trying to understand where our public input is coming from. And we do collect zip code data, and that's usually optional in many cases. So that can help, and like we can kind of get an assessment of where people are coming from. But try to squeeze in as much as we can without, as we all probably know too, working at public agencies, sometimes people don't want to provide all the information. And of course, that's also private information in many cases. So at least we do collect the zip codes, at least their point of origin. So that is one more factor we collect.
Did you say this is the first year you did the bike passport?
Yes. This is our first year, kind of our pilot year doing this.
When you mentioned that, something came to mind. This is an idea or a suggestion maybe. The national parks do passports where when you visit a certain region, like the the Southwest region, or they have different colored ink. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay, and it's really fun. I do it, and my kids do. We got the Yellowstone stamps this summer, Grand Tetons. If you wanted to continue doing that annually, it would be really cool if you could make certain stamps, like a passport book, and maybe I saw the map. It looked like there were placed all over. Maybe you just color code them. So that would be cool.
Yeah, here, can you provide a little more information about the standing of that? How do they mark this all?
Yeah, there was so I handed out stamps to each business, and in order to get the discount, the business would have to stamp. And that's also how we would verify that these people actually participated and went to that business when they would send in their passport.
So yeah, modifying for that would be something we could do in the future.
Like you could actually have a passport that's used every year and have a date. It might be too expensive, but it'd be cool for all the die-hard users that want to get stamped.
So I guess, so I didn't think of like the national park. We can maybe pull some of those aspects from that at least, and then see how we can build from there. At least good point, or good reference point. Anybody else have questions?
Okay, if there's no more questions, we can go to agenda item 8. Do we have any committee members that have announcements or recommendations for future agenda items?
I can start off, Robert, too. We included some of our MPO announcements here in the agenda package. So I know they've already passed, but recently we did have the open comment period, as Sonia said, for our plans, our MCP tip, and transportation conformity document. Also, we'll probably, most of our committees the meetings will be canceled in July. I'm not sure about ATAC yet, but ATAC, our meeting is usually canceled in July, so that will probably be the case for July. So we'll send out that notice later, letting you know that the July meeting is going to be canceled. I think that's about it for now, for the MPO. What else?
Anybody that's on the computer, on participating remotely, do you have any announcements or agenda items they'd like to see in the future?
Yvonne, go ahead.
Yes, so TxDOT has the annual bike public hearing, and that starts on June the 30th at 5 p.m. So if you guys are interested in attending and providing any comments, you can go visit www.txdot.gov, and in the keyword search, you can add San Antonio Annual Bicycle Project Hearing, and it'll take us to our webpage.
Yvonne, I'll share this information later, but could you provide a link? I think there's a direct link to TxDOT. Could you provide that in the chat box?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. And I'll share this information with you later.
Anybody else?
Via had one announcement. I put a link to our press release about the integration of the B-cycles and how Via partnered with them to enhance the ease and convenience of using only one app, the transit app. So you can now coordinate to get a B-cycle lined up if you're using the bus on one app.
Oh.
And don't you have some meetings coming up soon for the ARC?
Yes. I saw it while I was driving on San Pedro.
Okay.
It's June 25th, I believe.
You have 3 meetings coming up already.
I don't know all 3 of them, but I know.
We can send them out. But...
Yeah, one I know of is on June 25th.
So just add on Patricia's comments, so Via has some meetings coming up for their advanced rapid transit project, and I can forward that to the committee as well, those dates, and that link about their integration with San Antonio B-Cycle. Sorry, I'm still adjusting to the name. So their integration with B-Cycle on the transit app. I'll share that information as well. At the Bill, you have a hand up as well. You can go ahead.
Okay, I have a couple of items for those people that have been members of the VMAC and PMAC in the past. It was back when we first got the scooter infiltration here, and it became an issue for the city. We had Centro come and make a presentation on some of their proposals for these influx of so many scooters. So that's been over 4 years, I think, Joey. We could go back and see what the city is currently, during the pandemic, that dropped down quite a bit. I don't see as many scooters in the marketplace right now, but it would be interesting to see what the city is doing about controlling the amount of scooters that were here, because there's not as many. So that's one thing. The other thing is I noted Sonia talked about a regional lighting study.
Yes.
The San Antonio just updated. We started, we were meeting weekly in January through the middle of May to update the Unified Development Code. And one of the things that came out of that was that CPS Energy is advocating for the ratings of the street lights and stuff like this. It would be interesting, because I don't know what the regional lighting study that Sonia referred to, but to get somebody, obviously not July, August, September. It's going through the process. It has to go to the Planning Commission, to the Zoning Commission, and the Board of Adjustment before it goes to the subcommittee at the City Council. But all those amendments will become effective January 1. But it would be interesting to see what changes the city is doing related to lighting for pedestrians in their streets and basically the public right-of-ways versus what's going on in the regional lighting study. It's like two things going down the road, but are they communicating, and what is the impact?
And I guess, Deborah, like the scooter update, would that be still under CCDO, or is that transportation? So essentially like an update on, I guess, the dauntless vehicles, like policies and how the city is managing and looking at the data for like essentially adopt those vehicles or scooters in that case. Is that still under CPDO or is that,
Yeah, I think it is under them, since we don't currently have the scooters for them in the safety.
okay, so I can check in on that.
Yeah, what they were happening, just from remembering, Bert might remember some of this, is that, a company would come into town and drop off 300 to 400 scooters, and then a competitor, and all of a sudden, at one particular time, we had like 2,500 to 3,500 scooters, and they were blocking roadways, they were blocking pedestrian walkways, sidewalks, and so my comment was, it got sifted down and reduced during the pandemic. What is the city doing now about it?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, because I think the last update we had from, at the time, it was Center City Development Office from the city of San Antonio who presented, and so they had a presentation on essentially, you know, the good and the bad of these scooters, and essentially at the time they were talking about the policies that were put into place because there's 3 companies that were selected. So it's been a while, and some of the companies left, so I'll ask for an update.
Yeah, this presentation was a solicitation for proposals for 3 companies.
Yeah.
I think at one time, 4 or 5 years ago, we had about 7 or 8 companies dropping their scooters off on street corners.
Yeah. So I'll request an update from their office on that.
Thank you. Is there anything else, any other announcements or recommendations, future agenda items? Okay, if not, it's 4:13, and this meeting's adjourned, and I thank you all for participating and coming so we can get our action items taken care of. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.